Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for being here today. I'm excited to share with you a topic that could really change how you see certain situations. The title of our presentation is, If She's Doing These 5 Things, It's Already Too Late. We'll explore the key signs to watch for and what they mean. Over the next few minutes, we'll go through each of these 5 indicators so you can recognize them early. Let's get started. When a woman emotionally disconnects from her partner, it's rarely something that happens suddenly or overnight. Instead, it's a gradual process that unfolds over time. It often begins with small moments of neglect or miscommunication, little things that might seem insignificant at first, but add up. Emotional fatigue can also play a big role, making her feel overwhelmed or drained. By the time you actually notice that she's changed, the reality is that she's usually already detached on a deeper level. That's why recognizing the signs early is so important. In fact, there are 5 silent signs that indicate it might already be too late to save the relationship. These signs often go unnoticed because they develop slowly, and they serve as a warning that the emotional connection is fraying. Understanding these signs can help us better navigate and address issues before it's too late. This ties into our overall theme today: how to recognize and respond to emotional disconnection before it becomes irreversible. So let's talk about what it really means when she stops arguing. You might think that silence indicates she's giving up, but there's actually a deeper story here. When a woman is still arguing, it often means she still has hope that things can get better. She's fighting for the relationship, even if it's through disagreements. It's her way of trying to be heard and understood. But when she falls into silence, that's a different sign altogether. It's not just about not arguing, it's about her emotional withdrawal. When she stops reacting, stops explaining herself, stops defending her position, that's a sign of emotional death. It means she's no longer trying to be understood because she's accepted that you might never truly hear her. That silence can be a heartbreaking indicator that her hope has faded and she's emotionally checked out. Recognizing this is crucial because it helps us understand the true state of the relationship and where we need to focus our efforts. Let's talk about a concept from emotional psychology called learned helplessness. This happens when, after trying repeatedly to communicate or resolve conflicts, the brain essentially shuts down emotional investment as a way to protect itself from further disappointment. It's like the emotional energy just runs out because it feels futile to keep trying. Once someone reaches this stage, it becomes really difficult to rekindle affection through typical gestures like apologies or gifts. That's because the core issue isn't just about what you did or didn't do anymore. Instead, it's about what she perceives as no longer being possible, which is emotional safety and hope in the relationship. Understanding this is crucial because it shows us that sometimes, despite our best efforts, the emotional damage is deeper than surface-level gestures can fix. It also highlights why rebuilding trust and connection often requires more than just actions. It requires creating a sense of safety and hope again. This concept ties into our overall theme of understanding emotional barriers and how to navigate them effectively. Now, let's talk about what happens when she becomes unreachable. Even though she's still physically present, her energy feels distant. Conversations tend to become short and superficial. You might notice that eye contact fades and her tone turns flat and emotionless. The key thing to understand is that she's there, but not really with you. This is what we call emotional disassociation. Her nervous system is actually detaching to avoid pain. It's like she's mentally preparing for a life without you, even while she's still pretending everything's fine on the surface. What's really happening behind the scenes is that when her emotional needs aren't being met for too long, she subconsciously starts to withdraw from the relationship. It's a protective response. She begins to invest her emotional energy elsewhere, whether that's in friends, work, hobbies, or just quiet solitude, anywhere that doesn't remind her of how unseen she feels. By the time she's this detached, it's no longer about fixing communication. It's about her rediscovering herself. And at this point, you're no longer really part of that process. So, understanding this stage is crucial because it signals that she's entering a different phase, one where she's seeking her own space to reconnect with herself. Now let's talk about what happens when she starts rewriting her relationship in her mind. You'll notice her stories begin to change. For example, where she once proudly talked about how you met and the good times you shared, now she's focusing on the problems and the difficulties. Instead of saying, "We've been through so much," she might now say, "I should have left earlier." This shift is really important. It means her emotional memory is being rewritten. She's essentially reframing the relationship to justify her decision to leave. It's her way of detaching from guilt and mentally preparing herself to move on. Now, from a psychological perspective, this makes a lot of sense. According to cognitive dissonance theory, when what she feels emotionally doesn't match her current behavior, like still being physically there, but emotionally checked out, her mind tries to resolve that conflict. So she rewrites the story to make her actions seem more justified. If she's emotionally done but hasn't left yet, her brain starts creating a new narrative, one where leaving becomes not just an option, but a logical and even necessary step. This process helps her reduce inner conflict and align her thoughts with her feelings, paving the way for her to move on. Now let's talk about a really important shift. At the beginning, she sought your approval and validation. Her attention was driven by your opinion, and she cared deeply about how you saw her. She was emotionally connected to your reactions, seeking your response to feel valued. But things have changed. She now does what she wants, wears what she wants, posts what she wants, and she's no longer looking for your approval. This isn't about confidence, it's about detachment. She no longer feels emotionally regulated by your validation. What does that mean? Well, it means she no longer lets your opinion influence her self-image. You no longer have the same emotional influence over her. This is a crucial point. When a woman stops seeking connection in this way, it's not rebellion, it's liberation. It's a sign that she's breaking free from emotional dependence. She's no longer trying to fix herself or prove anything to you. Instead, she's reclaiming her own identity, especially after feeling invisible or overlooked for too long. And here's the interesting part. This stage can feel confusing for many. She might seem stronger, calmer, even happier. But it's important to understand that her peace now doesn't include you anymore. This change signifies her independence, and it's a powerful, sometimes challenging, transition for both of you to understand. Now let's talk about the final stage, which is quite interesting because it's often misunderstood. It's titled She's Kind but Indifferent. Ironically, this isn't anger or resentment, it's actually politeness. You might notice she's still nice, accommodating, maybe even friendly. But here, the key, it's the politeness of a stranger, not the warmth of someone who truly cares. What's important to understand is that there's no emotional charge left at this stage. No arguments, no jealousy, no passion, just emotional neutrality. It's as if the emotional connection has been completely severed. Now, the psychology behind this is crucial. Indifference is actually the opposite of love. When someone's angry, they still care. Anger shows they're emotionally involved. But when someone is indifferent, they've detached entirely. It's emotional closure, but disguised as peace. She's not being cruel, she's being free. The emotional bond has been cut, and what remains is civility. It's not about intimacy anymore, it's about maintaining a polite distance. And understanding this helps us see that sometimes emotional detachment isn't about malice, but about a desire for emotional freedom. Now, let's talk about what I like to call the deeper truth about emotional exits. It's that emotional departure often happens long before the physical one. When you finally notice she's changed, it's not just about her starting to leave, she's actually been in the process of finishing her exit all along. Women rarely just leave spontaneously. Instead, they detach silently, gradually, in phases. It begins with emotional withdrawal first, often without you even realizing it, and later, the physical separation follows. By the time she packs her bags or says, "I just need space," the truth is, she's already been gone in her heart for months. It's a slow, often unnoticed process. And here's the key. You can't fix it by chasing her, convincing her, or begging her to stay. Because at that point, she's no longer reacting from emotion. She's reacting from clarity, from a place of knowing what she needs and what she's been feeling deep down. Now, many men tend to miss an important part of this process. They think that the end begins with distance, when she stops touching, talking, or laughing. But actually, it starts much earlier with disconnection. When she no longer feels emotionally safe, seen, or understood, that's where it begins. And here's what's crucial to understand. She's tried. She explained her feelings, argued her point, cried, hoped, repeatedly. But each time she felt dismissed or minimized, a small part of her heart shut down. That's what leads to the emotional withdrawal. So by the time silence takes over, the love isn't the real issue anymore. The real issue is trust. Trust in your ability to protect her heart. Because if she no longer feels safe and understood, no amount of words or gestures will bring her back. It's about creating that emotional safety and understanding from the start. When she's gone, the key lesson from a Stoic perspective is to accept it with grace. If you realize it's too late, don't waste energy chasing what's already detached. The Stoic response is really about acceptance, not falling into self-pity or blaming others. Instead, use this experience as a chance to learn. Reflect on questions like, where did I stop listening? When did her silence start to mean pain rather than peace? And what could I have noticed earlier? These questions help us grow emotionally intelligent, not bitter. Because love doesn't just end, it teaches us something. So in that final reflection, remember, when she stops caring, it's usually not sudden. It's the quiet ending of a long emotional story. And when that moment comes, the best thing we can do is respect her silence and grow from what we've learned. Not all losses are tragedies. Some are actually wake-up calls, moments that push us to become better.